This episode is about the science of soil. It's about a microbial approach to sensitive skin and atopic conditions. It's about how we can bring wellness from the forest into our built environment, and so much more. Joining me now in the CosmoFactory podcast recording booth at Cosmoprof Worldwide Bologna is Iida Mäkelä, Product Director at Uute Scientific. Iida, welcome to CosmoFactory.
Thank you so much for having me.
No, I'm very glad you could join me. And I'm going to let our listeners in on a little secret. You're joining me on very short notice. I pulled you off the show floor. You're exhibiting in the fragrance and ingredient zone here at CosmoPack. So this podcast episode is a little unusual. We haven't had, a prior conversation to prepare like I do with many of my guests. And I don't have a set list of interview questions. So I think this will be a particularly fun and spontaneous episode for everyone to hear. I really appreciate your accommodating me for this.
Yeah, this is really exciting, and of course I'm happy to talk about our recent findings and the science around nature exposure.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. So some of our listeners, if you've been listening for a while with me, might recall one of the very early episodes, in fact, that we recorded here at Cosmoprof Worldwide Bologna in 2024, just last year, was with Johanna Ranka. We spoke about the brands that she's importing for one of her companies, but one of those brands is called Nobi. Mm-hmm. And so that brand actually includes the ingredient that we're going to be talking about from your company, from Uute Scientific, here today. And for those listeners who remember Johanna's episode, and even for those of you who don't, I just want to say a special thank you for listening. As I've suggested, we've been recording the CosmoFactory podcast now for a full year, and we couldn't have done it without you. It's a truly global community of listeners. You may have heard me say elsewhere that the podcast has now been downloaded in more than 100 countries around the world. It's such a great community, and I truly thank all of you for listening and being a part of these conversations each week. It's quite wonderful. So Iida, let's get started just with a basic introduction. Uute Scientific is a Finnish ingredient company, but you're doing something quite specialized. Tell us what you're up to.
Yes, so we have the own category called biodiversity rich, which is we have the only ingredient in that one, and we're really special. What we're actually doing is that we are bringing this natural exposure to everyone. So the kind of problem nowadays is that we have been distancing ourselves from nature pretty much. So when we think about human evolutionary history, we were basically covered in environmental microbes all the time, but due to the modernized lifestyle, that's not the case anymore. So we also get a lot of problems also from that because we are not connected to nature anymore. Everyone is kind of familiar with the topic of when you go to forest, you get really, it calms you, lowers your blood pressure, but also it trains our immune system, which is really cool. And now that is actually what we are restoring. So we are bringing the nature back to everyone's lives. And cosmetics is a really good way to actually do it because we have a lot of receptors on the skin that kind of are part of our immune system and are in a vital role in the nature exposure. So we have ingredients, and that it's called ReConnecting Nature, and we bring the nature to people.
Yeah, no, I love it. And anyone who follows my work beyond the CosmoFactory podcast surely will have heard of Uute Scientific. I've been writing, and I think I even created a video including your ingredient. And I want to be very clear, because it's such a distinctive ingredient in the cosmetics and personal care marketplace. You're basically working with a plant-based compost that in every way that I understand it, mimics the natural soil that would be found in a Finnish forest, and then you're extracting the microbes that dwell in this, and this then is your cosmetics ingredient. It looks different, it feels different, it behaves different than a lot of ingredients formulators might be used to. But it's truly fascinating and phenomenal. And I like what you were saying as you explained the idea of connection with nature. But you mean connection with nature in a very literal way, right? Not necessarily just a stroll through the park, but we're talking about feet in soil. We're talking about touching trees. We're talking about getting into contact with growing plants and various minerals and soil, as we've said. That's sort of out there, as it were. And this is where the human microbiome. We have our inscripted microbiome, yes, but then we get this, microbial input from our environment. And I don't have any trees in my apartment, I'll be honest. So that's certainly lacking in what we describe as the built environment. Can you? I think before we get into sort of the more interesting data pieces of this, can you just talk about some of maybe product prototype formulas or how you're seeing it used? I know, like I said, the ingredient is in the Nobi brand. It's in a handful of other brands in various markets. How does this make sense in skincare? Help us start thinking in that direction.
Yeah, sure. Our ingredients is really versatile. So we use it in many different kind of, our clients actually use it in many different kind of formulations. From sheet masks to body balms and lotions. It goes well with pretty much every type of product. And alongside cosmetics also we have textiles, because they are close to your skin as well.
Right.
And that is a good way also to get this natural exposure with our ingredients. And also toys, because it's safe to use. Also in children's toys and regulation wise also. So a lot of different products. We would like to promote people to go outdoors and do gardening.
Yes.
But I know from personal experience that that's not always possible, because we live really hectic lifestyles. I'm lucky. I have forest next to my house, basically.
Yes.
So I go walk quite often. But when in Finland, where we are from, we have winter jackets, we have gloves, and the soil is usually covered in snow. So that also has some effects how much we can get this natural exposure by going outdoors. So this is a good way to incorporate this natural exposure for your everyday lives. And cosmetic is a really easy way to kind of have it in your daily routine. Yeah.
And for formulators listening, I'll describe the ingredient as best I can. It does very much resemble soil in some ways. It's a chocolate brown granular sort of powder ingredient, but I have certainly seen it incorporated into numerous products. It doesn't show up on the face, as it were.
Yes.
Can you talk about those sorts of details that might be relevant to someone trying to formulate with it? How much of it does it smell funny? Does it, how does it behave in water, oil, all these?
You get really good explanation. It's this kind of brownish powder, which is some people may be kind of startled at the beginning that, wow, what is this? But it can be used in oil phases. It's not water or oil soluble.
Okay.
But it can be dispersed in both different categories and different products. We also have another product version on the market, which was launched about a year ago, this kind of liquid version.
Yeah.
So in the end product, the coloring effect is not that bad.
Yes.
So you can create really light emulsions, for example, with this new liquid type. But of course, we have gotten feedback actually from clients and end users that it's really nice to see the active ingredient in the product. So it's also can be a beneficial thing.
Yes, no, and I appreciate your mentioning that too, because we're certainly seeing consumers embracing products and even packaging that looks, and in fact is, that's why it looks this way, but it looks more natural. They're, less likely to expect what we would describe as like a pristine white skincare product, and recognizing that there is certainly value add to seeing the color, the texture, these sorts of things from an active ingredient. That's delightful. So I know you've done quite a bit of research. You have a very impressive scientific background. Can you talk us through some of the studies that you've done in terms of the benefits of exposure to this ingredient or to the source of the ingredient, perhaps?
Yeah. So maybe I'll start from the beginning, basically.
Okay.
So this nature exposure has been studied quite a long time already.
Sure.
In the universities. And Uute Scientific is actually university-based company.
Right.
So our roots are heavily...
Remind us which university you work with.
University of Helsinki and University of Tampere.
Thank you.
In Finland. So they have a kind of a really important role in the innovation and behind this company as well. But of course, I'm doing my PhD alongside my colleague Johanna Kalmari, and we are doing these bigger studies as a company as a part of our PhD thesis as well.
Sure.
So the basic knowledge about nature exposure is that we get immune-mediated diseases. They have been on the rise for a long time, decades now.
And I'm sorry, I just want to make sure I'm hearing you correctly. Did you like immune-mediated? Is that?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I'm still learning.
Yeah. So it means that our immune system malfunctions. So it either treats foreign objects such as pollen, which is basically harmless, but it interprets it as a harmful thing and reacts really in a harmful way.
No, it's spring here in Bologna, Italy, and this is happening for me right now.
So many people suffer from allergies, and those are part of that immune-mediated diseases group where our immune system is not functioning properly. So we know that this is happening alongside with the distancing ourselves from nature. One of the really interesting university studies from 5 years ago was by Maria Roslund and et al. And they actually had a daycare where the typical daycare yard, you don't have a lot of green, you have a lot of pavement, concrete, and kids are playing there. But they actually brought the nature to them. So kids were playing in this microbial enriched soil and plant material during the days. Every day during 4 weeks.
Okay. Like
5 days when they were in the daycare.
Yes.
And even within this 28-day timeline, they saw that the immunoregulation actually improved. And that's a really good sign for us because we know that when we are lacking nature in our everyday lives, we can actually do something about it.
Right,
so
right.
Really, really interesting and inspiring research.
Yeah, no, very promising indeed. And tell me then, what does this mean in terms of skincare? Because I believe most of the prototypes and like I said, products on the market that I've seen with ReConnecting Nature in the formulation are skincare or body care.
Yes. Of course, in cosmetics, you don't talk about immune system. That's
yes.
That is one thing. But we have done a lot of cosmetic studies, both in vitro and in vivo. Mm-hmm. So we have done skin models with artificial this kind of skin,
right.
And we see from that studies and from our clinical studies that the regular use of this natural exposure actually promotes skin barrier function and also or enhances skin barrier function and prevents redness and irritation. So it's actually detrimental for the well-being of the skin as well to get this exposure.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. And help me remember, I mean, there are quite a lot of microbes in ReConnecting Nature. Can you sort of refresh my memory on how many, if you can say anything about sort of the breadth of what they do or why they're fabulous? And then I'm, again, like always learning more, and so this might not be the right term, but I want to say deactivated microbes. Help me think about that, because I know, people are always curious, is this a true probiotic? What are we, where are we at with that? Let's think about microbes.
Yeah, really good question. I think many people assume us as kind of probiotic product, but we are completely different in many ways. And key thing is the diversity that we have of the bacteria. When we go to nature, it's full of life, and 1 gram of forest floor soil can contain up to 10 billion bacterial cells. So a huge number of life in small amounts. We have the same. And species-wise, we have over 600 species.
Wow.
So pretty different. And that is the key thing, how we get this similar exposure to nature. Yeah. So we have this kind of secret recipe where we have kind of determined how to make it similar as you would walk in a forest, basically. Mm-hmm. So that makes us really different. And so those are the kind of main functions why it works.
Yes.
And I'm sure we'll continue to the studies soon, but those are the key features of our ingredients.
Yeah, no, excellent. And I love your saying that forest floor soil. It's so romantic, isn't it? It's such a lovely idea. And I believe I've spoken with some of your colleagues before about the fact that this is the ingredient is based on the forest soil that would be found in Finland, right? I think I said earlier that you're using what we could think of as sort of upcycled compost, right? So you're not actually going out and shoveling up the forest to make this.
That's really important because as a company we want to promote people to go outdoors and enjoy the forest. That would be really bad if we cut every forest to get this product. So we are definitely using this upcycled plant material based composts where we get this desired effect.
Yeah, and one of the questions I like to sort of think about though is, as I understand, human populations sort of around the globe, right, will have different microbiomes based on their natural environment, right? If we think even, before the built environment, right, as people were living in different places around the world. Help me think about why the Finnish microbes, right, might be right for the global consumer. Why does this make sense?
Finnish nature is really pure, first of all. So due to our kind of location, we can have cold winters, and that creates this certain environment for specific microbes to kind of grow in that conditions.
Okay.
So that makes us really unique. And also you mentioned about the inactivation process that we do. Of course, we don't want to have forests growing in cosmetic products. So, so we inactivate the microbes so they are not living anymore or viable. But the cool thing actually is that they are still, the efficacy stays.
Right.
So our immune system is in such a great system that the particles and the structures of these microbes stay intact enough for the immune system to detect them and learn from that information.
It's so fascinating, right? It's like the little shape of what you're showing the skin is valuable.
Exactly.
So cool.
Yeah, so that makes the product really, really safe to use in different formulations and also on sensitive skin. Mm-hmm. That is also really important because many people do have sensitive skin. And our studies with patients with atopic dermatitis, we have done quite a bit of them. And we know from those studies that it is suitable and safe to use on really, really sensitive skin as well.
Yeah, no, excellent. Thank you for that. Is there anything else you'd like to share in terms of your research or maybe benefits that you've seen from the ingredient?
Yeah. So we just came out with the first results from our latest atopic dermatitis study. So we actually did last year. It was a big study, even globally. We had 140 participants with atopic dermatitis. Mm-hmm. It was a randomized and placebo-controlled study where we had this huge group of participants divided into two groups. One group were using a placebo lotion, so something that doesn't have the active ingredients.
Yes.
And the other group used same base lotion but with ReConnecting Nature. Mm-hmm. So we wanted to test in action when we bring the nature back to people with atopic dermatitis, how do they benefit from this ingredient? And the study lasted for 7 months.
Wow.
So it was a really long time.
Yes.
Also. And the participants used the lotion 3 times a week minimum throughout the whole study period.
Okay.
And what we actually saw was really interesting. They definitely did get benefit from the nature exposure. So we saw this kind of winter worsening effects on the placebo group.
Okay.
And this was not visible in the ReConnecting Nature
Sure.
group. So this is kind of our hypothesis that we can improve the skin barrier function and prevent redness and irritation on people also with atopic dermatitis. Actually, we saw that one.
Yeah.
And then another thing, which is not part of cosmetics, this study was a wider one, not
Okay.
only focusing on cosmetics, but also having cosmetic elements in there. So we also saw that the placebo group had more medication use days compared to the ReConnecting Nature group. So that was also highly interesting to see. So really kind of supporting our previous in vitro and in vivo studies that we have done already, and further confirming those claims that we have with our ingredients.
Yeah, and you mentioned, I believe you said winter worsening. Is that?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so interesting because we think a lot about, climate-focused skincare. Clearly, what you're describing is, seasonal skincare, and people often talk about, what are the right products, to use in colder weather. What are the right products to use during the summer? This sort of thing. So that concept of almost harmonizing or making the skincare more democratic. That's not the right word, but throughout the year, that's quite interesting that you can sort of affect the benefits in that regard too.
Yeah, and also I think everyone has some kind of irritant to their skin that they know that will affect. With atopic dermatitis, it can be sweating or even sunlight. Yep. Cold winter, dry indoor air. I think everyone who lives in a cold climate can recognize that one. But also any other irritant that there be. So everybody can benefit from this improved skin barrier function or kind of enhanced barrier function.
Yes. Well, Iida, I knew I was going to learn from you during our conversation today, and I certainly have. I thank you again for making time during the show here at CosmoProf to speak with me on the CosmoFactory podcast. Thank you again.
Thank you.
You're welcome.